Josh has texted, morning, I think, as many of us foresaw years ago, England wouldn't win anything with such a defensive-minded manager with this group of players. Added to that, his misplaced loyalty and inability to see what changes were needed before and during games means our players' ability to play as a cohesive team were hindered. And team is a word that crops up time and time again when the comparison comes up with Spain. We've been asking for your calls this morning. Lee, the Liverpool fans, called us 03717 223344. Morning, Lee.
Morning, guys. How you doing?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. No, my it's a bit of a rant. Harry Kane, I think he personally is overrated. Is his goals record that good for England if you take his penalties away? See, 22 goals from penalties. If you take that away from his record, is it actually that good as a national striker?
Even if the penalties still count, Lee, but even if you took them away, it's still pretty near 1 in 2.
If you go on to as a leadership, he's not a person. I don't see him as a leader on the field. Like Gareth from the side, he doesn't lead his men. He's quite quiet and basically how he puts his methods forward. There's no one there as a dog barking, right, lads, we need to go, we need to push on, we need to do this. But, is Harry Kane the right person to lead the team to the next tournament?
Well, we shall see. Thanks very much indeed for the call, Lee. Let's take one more. Jeremy's a Manchester United fan. Morning, Jeremy.
Morning, Jeff. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. So, Jeremy, what's your verdict on England?
Basically, to me, I feel there's a difference between expectations and realisation. We all expect us to win. Reality is we've not been great, even at club level this year. We've not been great in Europe. The reality is the FA have allowed a man to stay in position, playing only Harry Kane on the lead up to this tournament. Okay, so we never had, we never really knew what other players could do because he's always played that team. Now, at the end of the day, the reality is, as much as, I'm not Gareth's biggest fan, he's got us into the finals. And the players have to stand up. They've got to stand up. They're all professionals. And if Harry Kane's not fit, he's got to stand up and say, guys, I'm not fit enough to start.
Jeremy, I should tell you, Alan Pardew's shaking his head furiously.
Well, Ollie Watkins got to start a couple of times and in the build-up to this tournament, so that's not true. But, the bottom line was that Harry Kane is, and his stats suggest, definitely a starter for this tournament. But, of course, in this tournament... Hold on a sec. But in this tournament, he hasn't actually performed at the level we would want. And going into the final was a big question mark about whether he should start. It really was, because I did a couple of shows before and fans were on about it. It was top of the agenda. We all knew he wasn't quite right, that's for sure. And unfortunately, that got proved in the final because he was probably worse in the final than he was in the other games.
Alan, I disagree, because it was evident within the first half of the first game that he was not on the ball. The ball passed him like a school child, right, out of his depth from the very first game we played. Now, nobody had, to win a tournament, you have to make those decisions. And, just to make that one change could have, shown us something different. But it was never done.
Jeremy, thank you very much indeed for your call. Appreciate it. Have a good day. Joining us now, talkSPORT's voice of live football, Adrian Durham. Morning, Aid.
Morning, Jeff. Morning, Alan. I'd like to say it's good to talk to you, but it really isn't.
Yeah. Are you suffering this morning then?
Yeah, listen, forget the lack of sleep. I'm not too bothered about that. I would have been happy with a lack of sleep celebrating, but I'm just really gutted as to how it all went. How we sat back at 1-1. I was really frustrated with that. I think your caller has got a point about Harry Kane. He's not right on all details, but we played with 10 men for an hour because Harry wasn't good at all. He had to go off at half-time. Whether he should have started, given the state he was in, was another question as well. So there's all sorts of questions levelled at Gareth Southgate, as there have been when we've gone out, albeit deep, in tournaments in the past.
Do you think, Aid, and you know, looking at the number of calls and the number of texts we're getting here now, and inevitably people are very critical of Gareth Southgate. Would the public, would fans have been more accepting if we'd lost in the final, having played with flair and style?
Yeah, because if you think about the tournament as a whole, even though we've got to the final and we are nominally runners-up, we weren't the second best team in the tournament. It's just the way the draw fell. We definitely weren't. We're probably maybe even fourth or fifth, you could possibly say. So we've got to the final. Let's make the most of it, and they didn't do that. Now, we haven't got battered in terms of the scoreline, which is a real bonus, because it could have been embarrassing last night. I think if they'd have really gone for it instead of protecting a 1-0, I think that we could have been embarrassed. However, we've got back into it, and I thought that they were wobbling massively. So I thought that Cole Palmer's goal really set us on the front foot. And then whether it was the players, and I'd love Alan's view on this, I don't know if it's the players or whether it's the manager instructing them, they sat back and thought they called a truce with Spain, saying, let's go to extra time. Well, Spain had no such ideas of a truce. They didn't want extra time. Their fullback, their left back's getting forward to cross for the winner. So we should learn from them. And I don't understand why we haven't learned already.
Well, just going back to your point about that little spell, and it was a little spell, by the way. It wasn't a big spell. We had a little spell where we scored. And at that moment, I was the same as you, hoping that we were going to step on and carry on that kind of momentum that we had. Unfortunately, it happened against Holland as well, if you remember, when we took the lead there or got back in the game. We sat back for just straight away. And it's almost like, and I've had an issue with Declan Rice in this English team anyway, that he sits too deep. He sits, so we can't engage the midfield. We kind of lose a midfield player with him covering in front of the centre-backs. And then he did it again last night. Now, I don't think that's an instruction from Gareth. I think maybe in the conservative kind of way that he sets the team up, it might be a foul-safe system in the team that we feel that we got to do that. I don't know, because I'm obviously not there in training and in the team meetings. But what I would say is you're absolutely right. After we looked like the momentum had shifted and the crowd had got up and Watkins was on the pitch and it all looked positive, suddenly we went back into that mode of being lacking penetration, lacking kind of like a belief, so to speak. So I do agree with you there, Adrian.
Yeah, and I think listen, you might be right in that the players have that mentality, but after all this time, the manager should have got that out of them. You know, he's had a long...
And what about his press conference, Rice? They said to him, what was your biggest thing that you remember from the first final against Italy? Was the way we sat too deep and didn't get push on them. That was actually what he said. We don't want to do that in this game, and we went and did it again.
Yeah, and listen, in terms of, you're right, it was a very brief spell, but Cole Palmer had been on the field 2.5 minutes and scored a goal. That, to me, that's when you're saying to the players, keep going forward. We've got them on the ropes. If we don't get a winner, we'll at least go to extra time, but keep attacking. Basically, we asked them, can you score a goal? And the answer was yes, they could, and they won it.
Mark, the West Ham fan, is just really agreeing with you here, Ed. He says, you know, embarrassing, should have gone for it, mate. Gordon, Eze, Bowen on the bench. Just have a go, especially when we were on top. They were reeling. Ed, I know you're at the airport. Well done over the last month. Been absolutely brilliant. So have a safe trip back, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alan, Jeff. Good
safe journey.
To talk to you.
I hope he has a better trip back than I did, actually. Look, and this is like saying, you know, that the Rolls Royces are out of fuel. I get that. But I flew back with the world's favourite airline, and talkSPORT, I was very grateful. They booked me in business class. I was in the 9th row. By the time the service came to my row, the 9th row in the entire plane, there was only one meal available. Do you know what that meal was?
In terms of what's happening this morning.
No, you know what that meal was? Smoked carrot. And the man next to me said, smoked haddock? I said, no, smoked carrot. The world's favourite airline.
talkSPORT Breakfast, waking you up Monday to Friday morning from 6 a.m. on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.